and welcome to the Otherz podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Penny. Joining me this week, another special guest, all the way from New York. Everyone seems to be from New York. I don't know why. It must be the place to be at the moment. But we've got Blake Symphony. How you doing, man?
I'm good. Happy to be here. Happy to be a part of your podcast, man. Thank you.
Well, thank you for joining us. So this week we are going to be talking about Spaz. As usual, we're kind of jumping around a little bit in terms of release dates and things like that. This was in fact the third single from Seeing Sounds, released on, I think it was June in 2008. June or July. It was around the summer, I do believe.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not much information out there in terms of how it actually performed in the charts. We've got like two entries here, two really weird entries. These are these weird Billboard subcategories. We've got the bubbling under Hot 100, whatever the hell that means, and it got to number 6. And US digital songs, where it got to 61 through its digital release on various platforms, I imagine. iTunes and whatever else there was back in 2008.
Yeah. I remember Spaz felt like, because I remember Everyone Knows came out first. The original version of Everyone Knows came out first. And then I think that video was kind of doing its thing for a while. And then the next like big video or like kind of like full production was Sooner or Later. So I feel like Spaz was that middle piece, and it felt like more of a just kind of like a, you know how some album runs have like that promotional like kind of second piece, it's out, and I believe it's like live footage where they were like in a concert. It just felt like a soft single, like something to keep things going while the guys were maybe promoting or traveling until they could slow down and make another formal single.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those tracks. It's got a good mixture of genres in there. You've got the rock, the punk, and then the kind of the pop side to it as well, which makes it kind of commercially viable as a single. And as you say, it was filmed in 2 different places. Madison Square Gardens as part of the warm up to kind of one of the Glow in the Dark tour evenings, and also at Brixton Academy in June, I think, as well, which makes me think I may have actually been there and never realised, because I didn't realise it was filmed at Brixton Academy until I actually looked it up earlier. So
nice.
I think I was actually there when that was recorded.
Nice.
I may have to go back and check the video in detail and see if I can spot myself in the crowd somewhere.
It's a lot of grainy black and white footage to go through, but if you find it, please let me know.
Yeah, it is. It's very fast moving, quite grainy in places, and as you say, very black and white. So I may have trouble, but I'll give it a go and see if I can spot myself on the big screen somewhere.
Be a piece of history.
Yeah, for sure. The video itself was also directed by Robert Hales, who's from the UK. This is the only video I think he did with N.E.R.D, but he's a fairly successful and accomplished video director, starting out kind of in rock with 9 Inch Nails and people like that, and Oasis and lots of sort of big band names. And then around this time, kind of in the mid 2000s to late 2000s, he was doing N.E.R.D and Britney Spears and Avril Lavigne, and I think he did Love Stoned for Justin Timberlake as well.
Oh wow, great song and great video, especially that second half of it. This guy sounds like he kind of hit all of the heavy hitters of like last decade. Like I listened to everybody that you mentioned almost.
Yeah, definitely. I think around that Love Stone time there was a Timbaland track as well that he did when Timbaland was trying to break out of that producer mold and be an artist himself as well.
Yeah, great time, great run. It's a great time to be a fan of producers, man. Mid to late 2000s. I remember the Timbaland run, and it kind of coincided when N.E.R.D was like kind of not leaving us for so long. Like they kind of coincided with each other. Timbaland kind of got his Pharrell on for a little while. I remember feeling like that. Like, okay, Timbaland is back in front. That was also kind of a weird time for Pharrell, I felt like, because a lot of the Neptune's placements were like hitting the internet. I don't know if you remember that, but like, me being a stan, I would just Google him and Google Neptunes on like YouTube and stuff and just see what I would find for fun. And a lot of those artists, like you know, a lot of their songs would hit the internet, but their albums would still come out, and it felt like this weird time when people just weren't using Neptune tracks. Like they were getting in the studio with them, but they weren't using them. And my perception of what Pharrell was doing at the time and what they were doing was just focusing on his output just with N.E.R.D. Like, okay, the mainstream stuff is getting weird. They're not really using my stuff. I don't know why. I'm just going to focus on what I can control. I can control N.E.R.D. I remember he started turning up with BBC again. You know, it just felt like he delved into urban culture as opposed to mainstream music and media during that time. You know what I mean? And Timbaland kind of switched off and became like the new, like, kind of producer lead guy. So good times as a music fan, though.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think if you go back and look at around that time, as you say, there's a lot of Neptunes and Pharrell stuff that didn't make albums and didn't get used and is being reused nowadays for certain projects and things as well. So I think I
have to jump in real quick. I'm sorry, not to cut you off. I actually, because you remember around the time of like Seeing Sounds, and not to get off this album, I remember they were supposed to follow that right up with Instant Gratification. And I ended up running into, not Leah, got arrested. So I forgot the girl that was supposed to be in the band with them.
Rhea.
Rhea. I ran into Rhea at this is why I love places like New York, man. I ran into Rhea maybe like 3 years ago at an Urban Outfitter. And you know, I recognized who she was. I spoke to her, got a picture. I was like, what happened to those records from Instant Gratification? And she said, a lot of those end up being other records for other people. So you're right on point with that. Like, and I could kind of guess what records ended up being for who. I don't want to go back too much on a tangent in that space, but yeah, my theory is the record he did on Good Kid, Mad City sounded like an N.E.R.D. record. A lot of different rock records that people ended up getting, my theory is they were probably Instant Gratification records. Like, yeah, this is my fan theory. This is a super deep stand, you know, unreleased record theory right here. But yeah, it was a weird time, but it was a great time to be an N.E.R.D. fan because we were getting a lot of N.E.R.D. at that time.
Yeah, and it definitely happens. I remember seeing an interview with Mike Larson before the last N.E.R.D. album came out, so earlier this year, end of last year or something, and he was talking about how he gets to, you know, just dig through the crates, and he started working with Pharrell in about 2006, I think. And yeah, he was saying just from his period there, he gets to go back and revisit those things every now and again, and there's a lot of stuff hidden away on hard drives and a lot of stuff to that we'll probably, you know, we'll never see or hear, should I say. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff as well that he gets to kind of go through and pick out and see if it may work on some of the newer tracks that are being worked on. I know they certainly did that with this latest album.
Yeah. You know what? I feel like I can kind of hear that too. There's some tracks that musically, there's some tracks that take me back to that Seeing Sounds era. It feels like a Seeing Sounds track, and then there's some tracks that feels like they probably just made them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, Spaz is one of those itself where it's got that kind of punk rock influence. A lot of the new album has parts like that as well, where it's quite rebellious, I guess is the word. It's quite anti-establishment in places. It has a lot of kind of punk undertones to it. And that ties into a lot of stuff they've done previously, especially like Spaz, which is an obvious one.
Deep Down Body Thirst takes me back to Seeing Sounds. Like, if there was a record that they pulled from that one, I would guess that Deep Down Body Thirst. Musically is that. They probably rewrote it for what's going on politically, but it sounds like a Seeing Sounds track to me. But Spaz definitely, man. I remember during this time also, like 2008, N.E.R.D. just up and had a concert in St. Louis, which is my hometown, which is where I was first 25 years of my life. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, we went from Fly or Die, and then we didn't hear anything for years, and now they got a show with like Common in 2008 in St. Louis. So I got a ticket immediately. We go to the show, and they do the stuff we know, and then they start testing out Seeing Sounds records. And I remember they did Spaz, you know, and Spaz Live was pretty cool. But, you know, this is our first time hearing this stuff, and then hearing it on the record, feeling like sonically they did different things. Like, instead of using the live stuff, like they cut up maybe a drum break or something. Maybe Chad cut up a drum break and start playing the drums from the drum break. I'm speaking as a music producer here. Everything felt like it was more like electronic, but at the same time bringing the live feel. like a merger of it, like the energy of the band stuff because they're traditionally a band, but everybody's going electronic now. Everybody's going kind of like hip hop's getting even bigger in this time, so like they're trying to merge the two. It was a great amalgamation, I would say. It was a great energy. It felt like new space, but still familiar at the same time. You know what I mean?
It's funny you should say that because when I kind of watched the video back quickly earlier, just to kind of refresh my memory, that's exactly what I thought with my headphones on. You get that mixture of the electronic sound, but also those real kind of heavy guitars and the drums and that real kind of raw band sound that you'd get, when it's played live.
Absolutely. And even the way they went about writing it. Just everything about it. I really like the bridge to it. I mean, you as a Star Trek fan knows, Neptune's fan, the bridges are like heaven. It's like they add a little bit of heaven to everything. Yep. And I like the way, everything's kind of just punky, choppy. You know what I mean? You can't really get too comfy with it, but then they give you that serotonin. You know what I mean? With those Neptune's chords and, you gotta get it off. And then they bring you back to the, it's like a crunchy peanut butter. Yeah. You know what I mean? You get that crunch, but it's smooth at the same time.
For sure. And again, listening back to it earlier, it's another thing I always notice about this song is that, it's very heavy the whole way through, and it gets to that bridge and it just mellows out and it's kind of a bit more introspective and a bit more higher level. And then you get through the bridge and you get a small break, and then again, it just smashes straight in with the guitars again. And it's just, it goes off at 1,000 miles an hour immediately again. It's a really good kind of juxtaposition of the two kind of different sounds and styles that you get in that track. Yeah,
I would say Spaz and then Seeing Sounds as a whole also, it kind of reflects where urban culture was at that time. I think that was, and I put air quotes, so everybody listening, I'm air quoting. It's kind of like where the hipster wave was at the time. So everybody, whether you're whether you're coming from a bunch of hip hop or whether you're coming from a bunch of rock or a bunch of electronic or what have you, pop, everybody who was kind of part of that urban scene, we're kind of putting everything together. You're seeing what the other side is doing. You know what I mean? Fashion wise, music wise, just taste wise. You know what I mean? You're seeing what the other side is doing, and you kind of adding it to what you do. You want to get a little bit more universal in that space, which I appreciated a lot. And Spaz kind of felt like that too. Spaz felt like culturally what I was going through, or not going through, but culturally what I was experiencing. You know what I mean? Like, it's rooted in a banger. It was rooted in something I could play loud in my Camaro, which I had at the time. I had this 97 Camaro that I missed so badly. But at the same time, I could my homies in college that were rock heads, they could get with the music too. You know what I mean? So you have these rap and rock elements, you have these electronic elements. It felt fresh, it felt new. The whole album did, but Spaz specifically, it felt fresh, new. It was the energy, it was pent up, it was tension, but then like I said, the bridge gave you that release also. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those tracks as well that works because of that difference in it. It works really well live because you have that 2 minutes of just jumping around, headbanging, whatever it is. Then you get that kind of 20 or 30 seconds, whatever that bridge is altogether, of just calmness. Then immediately, like I say, it shoots off at 1,000 miles an hour again, and everyone gets crazy again. It works really well as a live track as well.
That's something that I've learned. Like the Neptunes fired up when I was a kid, just learning how to make beats, and the beats were so simplistic that I could hear what they were doing, and it kind of guided me. They weren't like Trackmaster beats where they're so layered and thick. I have no idea where to start. No, I could hear everything going on, and it taught me to balance the tension and the choppiness with the smoothness. I got that directly from the Neptunes. So many different bridges. Like the other day, I looped "Hit the Freeway," the Toni Braxton joint. And she has this bridge, and I want the whole song to be the bridge so bad.
It's an underrated track.
Jesus, man, it is such an underrated track, and the bridge is so good. Same thing, and so many tracks with great bridges. Spaz, if it gets a little annoying or if it gets a little like doesn't fit your mood, the bridge just brings you. It's like, no, I'm still giving you the serotonin, man. I'm still giving you the elevation. Him and Tyler, out of everybody in music right now, Tyler the Creator probably does that just as well. Like his bridges are crazy. Yeah, that's a whole nother tangent, man. I'm trying not to take you all over the universe, but
we can go whichever way you like. It's fine. It happens
okay,
most weeks, so don't worry.
For 1 second, can we talk about the bridge on 911 with Frank Ocean? The man, like if you listen to the chorus during the bridge, it's like heaven. Like I wish the bridge was like 2 minutes long. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. Bridges are big. Bridges are big. He really did his thing with the bridges on. They really did their thing with the bridges on Justified also.
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
a whole nother sermon right there. But yeah, the crunchy with the smooth. That's really what I take away from Spaz. A lot of the tension building up, but Pharrell being who he is, like you could tell as a human being he has these two different sides. He has this side where he came up around like the Clips and he saw what they were doing and things could get real. But then he's also this guy who grew up in the church and he's more of a nice guy by nature. So it's just like, listen, we can fight or we cannot fight. You know what I mean? We could, like Thrasher.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, we could do this or we cannot do this. It's two sides to it. And I appreciate that. So much of music is just tense and anger, but like that other side isn't presented. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
And just to something I just thought of as well, like going back to a point you just made a minute ago about the things that were happening in kind of culture and fashion at the time as well. It's around that time, those 2008, 2009, where we're starting to see quite a big change in culture and fashion in terms of, especially around kind of hip hop and stuff like that. We're starting to move away from the baggy jeans and Timbs and those kind of stereotypical things that we saw in hip hop in the late 90s and early 2000s, and we're starting to see the likes of Pharrell wearing the tight t-shirt. I don't think we're at skinny jeans quite yet, but we're looking at like slim fit jeans and
definitely slim.
And the fashion's making I don't know how quite to phrase it. The fashion matters more now. People aren't just looking at the fashion like they were in the late 90s, early 2000s and saying, oh, that's Versace, that's cool, that's Gucci, that's cool. People are now actually caring about the brands that are being worn and the styles that people are wearing. So the likes of Pharrell. And obviously this is still the time when he was, really wearing his, the BBC stuff and the ice cream stuff and we've still got the Bape stuff. I think in this video we've got a Bape SpongeBob t-shirt. We've got an ice cream hoodie, a couple of BBC hats. I think he was wearing Vans at the time. He was going through that kind of period. So we're off Bapes and ice creams at that sort of time for a little while. But yeah, this is where I think artists are really kind of trying to differentiate themselves a little bit more. This is just when I think the market's starting to maybe get a bit saturated, because it's a great time for music in terms of you've got a lot of it and you can pick out some good stuff, but you've also got the likes of, let's say, like Timbaland as an example, one of like the greatest producers.
Yeah.
And obviously he's been, he's rhymed for years and stuff. I wouldn't say he's particularly good, but this is kind of when he was, really trying to push himself as a kind of solo artist, and a lot of people were doing that around the same time. So it's one of those times where people are really trying to differentiate themselves, and I think the fashion and the things around that really kind of started to matter more. Yeah,
absolutely. I guess going back to what you were saying with Pharrell and where he was, in retrospect, I look at where he was with Seeing Sounds and, going heavy with the BBC and Ice Cream, and stuff like that. The Bape and a thinner version was probably the more refined version of where he was with the In My Mind stuff, like where he was with the Hell Have No Fury In My Mind, where everything was baggy and a little bit, way more in your face and flashy. It's almost like if anybody out there watched Dragon Ball Z growing up, Majin Buu starts off as this like plumpy, like pink villain, right? Like almost like the Marshmallow Man or something. But then the second form of him is like this skinny, trimmed down version. You know what I mean? It's probably like more efficient. Like, you know, that's how I look at the jump from like probably like the '06 In My Mind era, where he's like rapper mode, but splashy camo bait, and then he goes to Seeing Sounds, and it's more trim, it's more skater, more rocker. You know what I mean? Which is where we all kind of, which is kind of him and Kanye probably pushed culture by making those moves. Being in St. Louis at that time and following those guys directly and being on their blogs every day, so making the fashion changes when they actually happened versus being in a Midwest town where changes happen on delay. I took a lot of skinny jeans arrows. Like a lot of kids didn't have to deal with the skinny jeans teasing because I probably took the arrows first. Like I took a lot of skinny clothes. My parents asking me, like, it was a lot, man. It was a lot.
You're a trendsetter.
I guess I was. I guess for me, I'm looking at, you know, the guys who are introducing it to me, and I'm just like, man, I don't know what their source is, but I'm glad I have my eye on them. But for the rest of the world who's not swimming in the deep depths of the internet every day, you know, they're like, what are you wearing? Like, you know. On the flip, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think a lot of us that kind of follow the likes of BBC Bape and associated brands, I think went through that at some point as well, especially, in those kind of mid to late 2000s when we're wearing all sorts of crazy, colourful camo and all the weird and wonderful designs that were being put out then. I know back then I would regularly get, you know, weird and wonderful comments from people, and where I'm from, a small town in the UK, nobody else was wearing this stuff. You would never see it. I'd have to travel up to London to see other people wearing similar stuff. So in my kind of hometown, in my kind of circles of friends and family, like no one had a clue what I was wearing.
Yeah. For me, it was the most in tune of the most in tune there in the city that would totally get it, totally understand, and totally be on the wave too. But everybody else, it was just like, I know where that's coming from. I don't have the courage for it yet, or that is totally foreign to me. And you look crazy right now. Why are your jeans so tight? Why are your shoes so colorful? Why are you wearing completely pink shoes? Yeah, it was, but it felt good though. Like I said, all of this was new space. It felt like new space. It felt exciting. It almost felt like a cultural visa also. Because now the things that used to make me maybe at first glance be this or that is somebody's first perception. Now somebody sees something else. Now they see, oh, okay, what used to be like a huge jersey and baggy pants and like a hat, I don't know what I'm getting here. I'm not used to this. I don't have any black friends. I don't have any friends that's really connected to hip hop or urban culture. Now I see a guy that's wearing like a t-shirt that looks cool to me. He has pink shoes on. I should probably have a conversation with him and see what he's all about rather than make some kind of crazy assumption. You know what I mean? So that era was like a cultural exchange era, and I appreciate it a lot. And it's not, I was always that kind of guy anyway, but now it was becoming the norm. You know what I mean? It was the cultural equivalent of like Pro Nails. You remember the Kid Sister track?
Yeah.
She's rapping, but it's like this electronic beat, but it's like this, I don't know who the sample is, who did the hook. It sounded like Project Pat or something, but it's all of these elements in one, and it feels cool for everybody. You know what I mean? Hit me, or hit me on my beeper. Like, it feels good for everybody.
Yeah. And
that culturally, that's what it felt like, and the clothes were a big part of that. BBC Ice Cream was a huge part of that. Pharrell was a big part of that. I kind of wish I guess it's grown out of that place, and it's been in that place for so long that we don't think about it. But I do kind of miss the feeling of everybody being open-minded. I feel like now a lot of people are that they're accepting of some things because it's already normalized, but they're still closed-minded to other things. You know what I mean? But in that space, it was more like, no, it's cool to see what's going on the other side. Like, get out of your box. It's cool to be out the box. It's cool to see what's going on and be on something different. Because if you're two the same, that's kind of lame if you're two the same now. You know what I mean? So I appreciate that era. The clothes were a huge part of it. They were a cultural exchange. BBC Ice Cream was the forefront of that. You know what I mean? So it was fun, man. Fun stuff. Adventurous.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it was... we had that with the different clothing lines, and we had that with the music at the time. As I say, it may have... there may have been a lot of artists and may have diluted some of the music, but at least people were kind of out there trying stuff, and there was something for everybody essentially.
Yeah, Absolutely, absolutely. I think the generation of rappers that we got post 2008 was probably a direct result of like kind of like that N.E.R.D. Kanye thing that they had going on. Lupe too at the time also, where you had like at the time like the Charles Hamiltons, and you had like Mickey Fax, and Wale was coming up at that time. Big Sean was peeking through the dirt at that time. He swelled up as time went on, but you had a whole new slew of rappers that were already there. They're already with it. Cool Kids, they were like beacons of that era also. You know, I always look back on that era and say that's the era that birthed me. You know what I mean? That's the era that I kind of made an entry point. Like in that same period of time, like in 2009, 2010, I had like in St. Louis, I had like my first song on the radio. Like their equivalent of Hot 97 in New York, that 104.1. That was when I was rapping. That's when I was sending stuff to blogs. That's when I was, trying to do my thing before I came to the East Coast and got into media. And it's just, it gave birth to me. I found myself in hip hop in that era. Before then, it was like, okay, I'm kind of fabulous, but I don't have the street stuff going on. Little Nelly, he's from St. Louis. I like what he does. I'm kind of like Usher, but I can't sing. You know what I mean? But in that era, and Kanye had already started it, Pharrell had already started, but in that era, the whole culture became like, no, this is exactly who you are. Like Kid Cudi, this is exactly who you are. This kind of guy. You know what I mean? Not too much of any one thing extreme. This is exactly who you are. And the clothes, once again, not to be too redundant, the clothes were a culture exchange, man. It was great.
Yeah,
it was great.
And as we said with the fashion, I think that's happened to a lot of us, a lot of listeners out there. We don't feel we belong in one kind of certain group over there. Maybe it's the cool kids, or maybe it's people doing things they shouldn't do, let's say, or we don't feel we fit quite in. We kind of, hover over the boundary of both, maybe, or more than both.
Yeah.
And this is when it became more, I guess, acceptable to kind of be like that and start being yourself, as opposed to being kind of pigeonholed in a certain group.
Yeah, I think it was right now. Everybody, it's almost a corporate coin now. The creator term, where I feel like that era gave birth to the creator. Where we were figuring out what it is to be this pluralist, to kind of be able to do different things and be in different spaces. We couldn't coin it then, but I think it's coined now. I think the creator thing and how people carry that comes directly from that blog era, that first era of like, I hate to say hipsterism because it always had this bad connotation, but I look at it affectionately, the air quote hipster era. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It gave birth to how we do things now. That's the norm. You wouldn't even have like the kids like the Tyler the Creator, like I would even say like Donald Glover. You wouldn't have people like that who are these pluralists who can do different things without that era. Like it was just no room for it. People existed like that, but it wasn't the norm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would even say Will Smith. Will Smith was probably like the ancient grandfather version of like the creator, like the actor, rapper, produces stuff, you know what I mean? He's probably like the ancient architect of that. But later down the line, we got the whole servant of it in that blog era, that hipster era.
Will Smith's a good choice of an analogy. I can't even say the word analogy there. Yes, and it's weird because back then, I think a lot of people would look at him as, at one moment he's credible, then he's a bit cheesy, then he's kind of credible again. But now when you look back, now that he's just turned 50 or something, hasn't he?
Crazy.
And you look back now at his kind of catalogue of work, you see kind of why people do this stuff, and they're just enjoying themselves, and they're trying to be themselves, and take the opportunities in the work where they can. And now even when I look back and you look at some of the cheesy kind of stuff and the stuff that isn't credible in air quotes, it's still, you kind of forgive him for that. You don't mind that so much. It's just
you don't mind it so much. Listen, man, you can be, insert super credible rapper with songs that didn't make it out of the generation, or you could be getting jiggy with it and play your song in Finland, and everybody goes crazy and enjoys themselves 20 years later. You know what I mean? And I'm not saying that's everybody's thing. I'm not saying every artist should have been that, but he got it. You can play Men in Black. You can play Getting Jiggy with It. You can play the Fresh Prince theme song, and everybody in the world knows the music. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you don't get all of the street hood credibility in the moment, but for the rest of your life, you have records that never die. You know what I mean? And then he has Summertime. So if you front on him, he still forever has the Summertime hood pass.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly, yeah.
You know what I mean? So
forgives everything.
You still got it. You still know that he's still down, but he does his thing. Then he has Oscar nominations and billion-dollar movies. Come on, man. Will Smith is a man. But he opened that up. I say he's like the grandfather of just doing your thing and being an individual, no matter what anybody says, and shining off of it. And Tumble Down, now you have guys like Uzi Vert and Lil Yachty, who, regardless of how you feel about them, they can be totally comfortable in their own skin. You know what I mean? And I think the blog era birthed that. You know what I mean? Even Soulja Boy was part of the blog era in his own bastardized way. He was so super internet. He wore Bape, even though it was fake at first before he got money. Yeah. You know, he's making his own beats. You know what I mean? He had a clothing line, no matter how crummy it was. You know, he's doing these things. He was like the kind of crummy version of everything I was saying, but he was doing it. And he showed a bunch of kids his age, like, yo, just go for it. The one thing I envy about the kids, you know, that's kind of like a half generation below me, like 5 to 10 years younger than me, is that they had the information, the inspiration, and the leeway to just go and do it right away. You know, they didn't have to learn like the old ways of doing stuff like we did from our parents, and then things converted as we got older and we had to figure it out. No, they had the new layout ready for them when they became of age. You know what I mean? So all of that came from this blog era. All of that came from the Sing Sounds, Spaz, you know, Glow in the Dark, Graduation. All of that came from Cool Kids. All of that came from that era. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All of it came from that era.
And it kind of ties in as well to some conversations I have with people sometimes around some of the Neptune stuff, where maybe around that time they were also kind of spreading themselves a little bit thin in places. And like you said, you know, there's a lot of stuff they produced that never actually made the cut because they were just constantly outputting something, whether it was good or whether it wasn't. They were constantly kind of outputting it. But when you look back in hindsight, and I can't remember where I heard this story. It was an actor of some kind that I heard talk a few years back, and they were saying like, why have you made all these kind of really crap films? You're known for, you know, I can't remember who it was, but I think they'd won like an Oscar or an Emmy or something. They had some absolute, you know, cult classics, but they were also making like really bad films as well. It may have been like Nicolas Cage or somebody like that along those lines.
Yeah.
And they were saying it's because I'm in a position where I have the opportunity. Not everyone will like that cheesy film that I make that isn't like a smash hit, but if a few people like it, then that's fine. Like my experience doing that crap project helps me learn how to make the next project better, or to pick the next project better, or how to apply myself differently. Or it also lets me take that money, and then in 2 or 3 years' time, I can take all that money I've made from these really crappy films, and I can go away and make one of those really highly thought of independent films, which is going to go to like, you know, Cannes Film Festival or Toronto Film Festival or somewhere, and, you know, win a load of awards. So I think from like an outside perspective, it doesn't always seem like that. It just seems like the likes of Will Smith just chooses to do some cheesy shit because it's just going to bring in a lot of cash. But there's normally a bit more to it than that. It's normally an opportunity to actually do something else within the industry or for their own kind of personal
growth and development.
Growth. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah.
I would say this, bringing this back to the Neptunes and, well, Pharrell specifically, during this same time when the mainstream records were slowing down, like after like Hard Candy, it's just like he couldn't land a song to save his life outside of like Jay-Z. He did work on Despicable Me. And I remember the first Despicable Me soundtrack I really enjoyed. My favorite song off of there was Fun, Fun, Fun. Yeah. It took me back to being like 3rd, 4th grade, you know, summer vacation, You know, amazing song. If you ever talk about that soundtrack, please call me back.
Yeah.
But that I remember, you know, now that you said that with the growth and development and trying new things, Pharrell does movies left and right now, and he soundtracks them left and right. And he took the opportunity to be like, okay, I've made literally hundreds of songs, a ton of hits. This is slowing down for now, but I have an opportunity to do this movie soundtrack. You know, so he had to get quiet, get out the way, stir up something else, kind of plant another seed. And now he's a movie guy. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And I think if you look back at that time, and again, when he did like this, when they did the SpongeBob stuff as well, there are like hardcore N.E.R.D fans and Pharrell fans saying like, "What the hell is this? This isn't Pharrell. This isn't N.E.R.D." But it's not for you as a hardcore fan. It's for a completely different audience. It's for a completely different experience for other people, and for them to be able to, as you say, kind of grow and develop themselves as well. And like you say, he's gone from doing the likes of Despicable Me, which was huge anyway, but I don't think we really necessarily expected it in the soundtrack to be that big. To going out into Happy, which excelled him to another level. And now, now he's doing, he was doing like Spider-Man and all these kind of, huge, big budget Hollywood movies. Yeah.
Yeah. And man, you just mentioned Happy, and Happy was technically on the second round, like the second soundtrack. I think they were keeping some of the same songs from soundtrack to soundtrack. You don't get Happy unless he's sitting in the studio working on a soundtrack for a movie for CeeLo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like growth and development, man, using new opportunities. Like you don't get his biggest hit and the biggest hit of the decade without that process, without him stepping away and saying, okay, this is a specific purpose for a specific scene. They've rejected 9 versions of this song already or whatever. You know, you have to, and it goes back to what we were saying, man, accepting different things, trying different things. You know what I mean? I was in college in that 2008, 2007, 2009 era. You know, I have friends with bands. I always liked rock, but it's like now I'm stepping into it. I want to be at your show. You know, I want to see what this other stuff is about. And it came from that N.E.R.D mindset. Let's do some other things. Let's pluralize ourselves. You know what I mean? Not just be boxed in. Him not pluralizing himself led to a process and a series of events to where he got the biggest hit of the decade. You know, that he was trying to give away.
Yeah,
it's just the algorithm didn't let him. You know, it was time for him to have that. Because for Neptune fans, for N.E.R.D fans, he was already the Happy. His worth for Happy that the rest of the world saw, he was already that for us the whole time. It's like, didn't you hear Frightened? Like you didn't know he's good at this stuff, but the rest of the world finally got it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so it's embracing the process, man. Embracing stepping across. Like at some point, you probably were like, okay, I do this and I do that, but I want to try this podcasting thing out. I want to put this together. And you literally got Shay on the show. That has to be like a pinnacle point. Like it's a Star Trek podcast and you got an N.E.R.D member on the show. Like, you know what I mean? But
exactly.
If you didn't step across and try something else, get your mic together, just put it together, get those first couple podcasts out, you know, where would your process be right now?
Exactly. We've we've digressed quite a bit. I did say that was okay to do so. We could go off some weird tangents. I'm just trying to think if there's anything else to mention about the video that we should, because otherwise somebody will complain about something, I'm sure. But I think we covered most of it. I think we covered it all.
See, they didn't even give Spaz the energy that we're giving. Like I love Spaz, but they didn't even this wasn't a huge campaign for them. It was like this kind of gem, like this little nugget of energy in the bigger body of work. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it seemed like a kind of radio friendly kind of track that we'll put out to bridge a gap. You don't need to film. You don't need to take a couple of days off to film a video. We'll just the director will turn up at a couple of shows and film you there doing a normal show that you're already getting paid for. So don't worry about it. And then we'll stick a few graphics on it. We'll make it look nice. We'll stick it out. It will do the job.
Yeah.
But I say that, and it's still to me, it's still a good track. I still listen to it regularly.
Absolutely.
As I say, seeing it live is always a treat, 'cause it is one of those that goes kind of at 100 miles an hour and really gets a crowd going. So I do always really enjoy sort of seeing it live.
Absolutely. No, it was probably made for a live performance. It's one of those songs where it's just like, yo, put it on because we need some turn up. You know what I mean? We need a turn up song. Yeah, yeah. Before you let me go, I'm just gonna throw this in the air, and we don't have to talk about it now because it's not about this topic. But there are a load of Pharrell slash Usher songs on YouTube. I don't know if you've covered this yet in an episode of yours, but they have like an EP or a small album's worth of collaborations that just never landed. So I'm not going to take you off on that tangent because we have a topic. But if you ever need to delve into those tracks that I treat like an album, a ghost album that just never dropped, I am here for you, sir.
Yes, I know there are a lot out there. I probably have most of them in my iTunes library. And yeah, I think once we get through all of the singles and stuff, we're definitely kind of going to circle all the way back round and start talking about all the weird and wonderful stuff that most people have never heard of. So I'm sure we will get to that kind of thing for sure.
One more thing I'm going to toss up there for you, just so you know, you got a guy out here for it. The theory. Okay, so I have a producer friend named Tapes. He's a producer, signed producer. He told me years ago, and he was part of like it's kind of like the studio group that ended up birthing like Smino and Chance the Rapper. Like I was around these guys at the time. But this was years ago before everybody kind of made it out of Chicago. Anyway, he told me that he heard a rough demo of Michael Jackson singing "You Don't Have to Call." Now this is
it was originally written for him. I think that's
right.
I think that's kind of, I was going to say public record in air quotes. I'm fairly sure Pharrell and or Usher has mentioned that, but I wasn't aware that Michael had actually got on it at any point and done any kind of rough cut or demo.
That it's pure theory and myth because I've never heard any audio of it, but the guy swears. So that can just be a myth we could throw up there. But yeah. I just wanted to throw those out there so you know that I'm stewing.
Yeah.
For these things.
And it wouldn't surprise me. You know, Pharrell has said he wrote that for him. Michael Jackson was, I was going to say close to Usher, but was friends with Usher. They did a number of live performances together. I know Pharrell had a few conversations with Michael over the years and stuff about trying to get something kind of worked out. So it wouldn't surprise me if, you know, a beat kind of got to Michael and they asked for some, you know, for him to do some kind of demo or rough cut so they could just kind of see how it may work and then decided, or Michael's people maybe decided they didn't like it as they always used to seem to decide in the later days, and then it went elsewhere. But I wouldn't be massively surprised.
You know how in Indiana Jones, how they were looking for like the Holy Grail or whatever, and like they got to it and it was like ghosts and stuff, and like, you know, for me, a recording of Mike actually on top of a Neptune's track, no matter how rough or undone it is, would be like the holy grail of recordings. My favorite artists of all time, or my favorite producers of all time. I don't care if he's coughing on the track and they turn it off. I just need it to exist. So, but anyway, that's pure theory right now.
I'm with you on that for sure. But yeah, I'll throw that out there to a few people because I'm sure other people will have heard of that theory if it's been floating around for a little while.
Yeah, man.
All right, let's quickly move on. We can mention a few BBC things. We had, I think I mentioned this in the last podcast, but the Sandal Boys drop. That happened. I think there was an initial sellout. There's been a further drop. So if you're still after a pair of the Sandal Boys Beepers and Butts sandals, you can get a pair, I think, from BBC Ice Cream online at the moment. We've got the new and recent resurgence of ice cream. So not only the made in Italy stuff, but we've also got some standard releases of ice cream. We've got belts and hats with running dog graphics, cones and bones, and a few new designs as well. So if you're an ice cream fan and you love those OG logos, you can find them on the BBC Ice Cream website and in the store. There's a new BBC Kids drop. So a lot of people probably won't realise that a number of years back, BBC did some kids wear, which was mainly tracksuit bottoms and hoodies in different colours and stuff. They've actually repurposed some of the recent adult designs, I think from the spring or summer, to kid sizes. So if you've got a kid and you want to cover them in BBC stuff, you can do that now as well. Again, only US at the moment, I believe. If you're over in Europe like me, BBC EU have just dropped their new autumn-winter stuff, or the first drop of many, as they normally do. There are some quilted shirts and check designs, very autumn-wintry looking, and that's going alongside the BMX and dirt bike stuff that the EU and US are pushing at the moment. And also, as we seem to mention pretty much every week, new tennis hues. I think there are 2 new colorways. There's a navy blue and what Adidas call a raw green color. So if you want some tennis hues and you want those colors, you can go and get those. If you're like me and you've already got too many and you're fairly bored of them, then you can avoid them. I don't need any more in my life.
I'm actually right now looking at the BBC Kids stuff. I'm a father of 2 kids, a 5-year-old girl, 3-year-old son. And as much as I want some of this stuff, my son would probably look even cooler, like as a little compressed version of myself. Yeah. And some of this stuff right here, man, it's pretty dope.
Yeah, I need to ensure my kid. He's actually 8 in a couple of weeks, and I need to make sure he doesn't see any of this online anywhere, because he has in the past mentioned he'd like some of the BBC Kids stuff. So yeah. I can't be telling him there's new stuff coming out as well.
Oh man, and Christmas is not around the corner, but we got about one more holiday before it becomes Christmas mania. For retail. I
was in the store yesterday. There were Christmas chocolate things out already. Christmas Kinder eggs, Christmas chocolate snowmen and Santa Clauses. So it's inevitable.
Early.
It's nearly here. Yeah.
Sheesh, man. But yeah, the stuff looks great. I'm a big fan of this kind of BMX flavored stuff. A friend of mine back home was actually a young lady. She kind of found like a real cool way to put it together. She had on like a kind of like a tight top or whatever, but then she had the BBC BMX pants or whatever. The Delivery 2 freestyle pants is what they call. And she put them like with heels. It was pretty dope. It was like a different take on it. You know, you used to see guys knock them around, but you know, you put them on a nice lady and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, those are great pants.
Yeah.
So yeah, she did her thing with those. I'm really happy to see ice cream come back, man. It's just taking me back to like a pure place with this stuff, with the flashes and the colors and the mentality.
Yeah, it's certainly it's splitting the community, I would say, at the moment. I'm personally happy to see it. I think they've got a nice mixture of like the classic designs, the running dog, and some cones and bones stuff. They've got a few new designs as well in there, which look quite nice. So I think there's a good mixture. And I think the problem we had with ice cream before was, one, it was cheaper prices and cheaper quality. But also, you know, the market was just flooded. You could buy ice cream stuff in like every department store anywhere, in every colorway, with every weird and wonderful design. I think they're being a bit more sensible about it now and not pushing quite so much stuff, keeping it slightly more limited. So, and obviously you've got the Made in Italy sort of branch of it as well, which is helping kind of re-establish the brand. So I think they're doing good things with it, and I have to say, you said about the kind of sweatpants, the running dog ice cream sweatpants, I think look really cool. I'm not a sweatpants person, despite me. I'm wearing a pair now that I bought the other day, and it's probably the first pair I've owned in 20 years. But the running dog ones, they look really, really cool, and I think I will have to probably get a pair at some point.
I stopped being a sweatpants person for a long time, but I would say the Yeezus / Pablo era of fashion brought me back. I guess when they start thinning out, skinnying out, or whatever, it's just like, okay, this is a good bridge. I'm not completely bummy, but I can dress down a little bit with these. So yeah, I'm all for a good pair of sweats, man. Especially this time of year in New York. If I don't have to be anywhere formal or professional, sweats might get thrown on. You know what I mean? So
I got to say, I got to give people a public service announcement. And I'll probably get hate for saying stuff like this. But people, sweatpants are not formal wear. They are not stuff to wear outside. If you want to run across the road to the store, then that's cool. I'm with you. don't worry about throwing on a pair of jeans. You're good. But if you're going to go out shopping, or you're going to go into town, or you're going to go do something where you've got to interact with people of some kind, don't wear sweatpants, please. Just put a pair of jeans on, please.
Well, look at it like this, man. The same way you can, because sweatpants are becoming more and more refined in certain ways, you can look at them the same way sneakers had to make that jump at some point. At some point, it was just like, listen, if you're doing anything other than playing basketball or like cutting the grass, you should not have sneakers on, right? That was the mentality. But they evolved into something you can kind of, if it's a certain type of sneaker, you can wear it to work, if it's not too big or bulky or loud. And then it evolved into formal wear because they have these premium leather, low profile stuff that doesn't jump out and look like it's misplaced. And then they even have it where they have like wingtip shoes with like Nike soles and stuff, So I think it's just an evolution, and the evolution isn't done, And clearly, it's some things you can't wear sweatpants to. I don't think sweatpants are going to make it to wedding reception, like weddings and stuff, right? But I think they've made it to a point now where you can do stuff around them to where it's not just go to the store or just take your trash out,
Yeah, they're acceptable.
That might not be your lane, though.
Yeah. I'm just showing my age. I'm just, I'm just an old guy who just, doesn't like what the kids are doing these days.
But bro, you're a dad though. You need the sweatpants. Are you serious? Like, you got to get up. Your son has to do something early on a Saturday. You want to iron some jeans, or you want to throw on some BBC sweats and get out the door?
Yeah. I know.
I'm trying to help you out, man. I'm in the struggle with you.
To be fair, winter is approaching here, and it's gonna be like -20 outside now. So you got to wear about 10 layers out anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, well, I think that was everything I had on my list. Is there anything else from yourself?
I have really tried hard not to be too Neptunely random, but I really, really appreciate this call, man. It's therapeutic to actually talk to somebody about this stuff, So thank you. I have some like IGs or something to throw out if it's that part of the show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, give people your handles where they can follow you and stuff.
Okay, guys. So my main page is at Blake Symphony, BLAKE SYMPHONY. That's just kind of where you get everything. But I also have a video page because I'm a videographer. It's at Blake Murphy Media. Everything spelled correctly. But yeah, man, at Blake Symphony. I'm a producer as well. Thank Pharrell and Chad for that. If you just go on to any of the streaming sites, you'll see projects from me, Blake Symphony, beat tapes. Nomad is the one I just put out this summer. Collection of beats, and I have a TED Talks. Friend of mine who had a TED Talks, and she has a couple skits on there just giving you some life advice about traveling and working and staying determined. And a beat tape from 2015, which is Dreamcast. Both of these are Sega systems, kind of keeping the Sega system theme going. It's just inspiration, touch points. So Blake Symphony, man. At me on IG.
That's cool. And if you're listening to this in a podcast player, or even if you're streaming it on the website, there will be links directly underneath right now. So go click on those and follow. All right. Absolutely. Well, I think that's it for this week then. I'm sure we will get you back at some point when we talk about other tracks, or we circle back round and we talk about some unreleased stuff and crazy fan theories and all that jazz.
Man, I'm looking forward to it. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
No, it's my pleasure. And as I think I say most weeks, this is what we're here for. We're here for like us fans to get together and, chat shit and throw all these crazy ideas and theories out there and give our opinions on stuff. And, it's exactly what we're for.
Absolutely. Shouts out to, and you can cut this if this is like some kind of thing, but shouts out to the Neptunes.org. You ever go to that site?
Always. Yeah,
they have, man, they've been great through the years. They've been absolutely, or he or she or whoever it is, absolutely great through the years. You're like the audio version of them to me. You know what I mean? Like, just, I can dig in. Every little thing that happens is hitting their radar. I appreciate it a lot. Shouts out to everybody with the Neptune N.E.R.D accounts online. And it's a community. Everybody just keeps everybody up to date and shares random little nuggets from the past. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate the whole N.E.R.D community, man. We're family.
Most definitely,
We're
yeah.
family.
Yeah, and I've got to say, yeah, shout out to Mika from Neptunes.org. He will hopefully be on here at some point soon when we actually get around to arranging it and scheduling it, which is the toughest part of doing this podcast.
Absolutely.
But yeah, all right. Well, that's it for this week then, everyone. Thank you for listening. As I say, you can find the show notes down below wherever you are listening to this at. You can find me at... Are you done? What are you doing? Are you done? Yes, we're nearly done. Hold on. Don't tell her I said that. You can find me at Steve R. Penny on Instagram. You can find us at Otherz Podcast. You can go to the Otherz.net and you can cop some merch, and more merch coming soon over at othersmerch.com. That's it for this week, everyone. We will speak to you next time. Bye-bye.